So the other one is psychodynamic. So if you break these words, psycho means... Okay, psycho means mental functioning, and dynamic means...
I was thinking it was crazy.
Okay.
Because you call someone a psycho and... anyways.
Yeah, no, we take psycho means as mental.
Okay.
But it's not that perspective every time.
Gotcha.
Okay, so dynamic perspective says that you have like from your childhood, what experience you have, they affect in later stages of your life. So in childhood, the experience that you got being conscious and unconscious. So the unconscious role in childhood, like your unconscious role and your childhood experiences will be like the part of your life.
Gotcha.
So humanistic perspective says that, okay, so here we were talking about behavior, but it's more like that how environment affects you. But here in humanistic, it says that every human has their specific thing that they have an innate or inborn, like that innate inborn behavior that affects life.
So subjective refers to like their...
Yeah, what they will like...
Their tendency or...
Let me think of an example.
Their habits?
Yeah, you can say habits. But habits, it's kind of like you develop. But the thing in it and one is like sometimes you're like talented for the thing, and sometimes you're not like you think that I'm not made for it. Yeah. Or sometimes you're interested in few things that you don't know you're interested in just because you like it. That's what humanistic perspective is. But here it's like how environment affects you. Because of the environment, you became interested in that thing.
Gotcha. So I could put like your natural interests for humanistic perspective, or natural abilities?
Yeah, but you can say it's just subjective experience. Subjective experience is what you can see.
What you can see. Okay.
It's like what a person can tell about himself. What you can see is objective.
Like what I can see in you, or what you see in yourself?
So if you can see what you can see in me, it's like objective.
Okay. So what?
But what I can tell about myself, that I'm interested in these things, that's subjective.
Okay.
Subjective is something you're telling by your own self.
Okay. Cool.
Right. And it's developmental perspective. So Erickson and Piaget mostly work on this theory. They said that the development of a human or adult, the child, it depends upon their developmental stages. So they give the developmental stages in which they said that there are some roles that need to be fulfilled when they grow up.
Okay. And for the nature and nurture thing.
Yep. So in developmental perspective, they said that the nature and nurture is really important to fulfill those developmental stages.
Okay.
Alright. So nature is the environment that you are born in and how that infects you, and then nurture is how you are being nurtured, or you can say being brought up by your parents or somebody.
So nature's environment and nurture is like
The people, yeah. So we can think the nature is like how you. So nurture is what, like your emotional attachment with your parents. Like, are you comfortable, satisfied, or not? If you're comfortable and satisfied, you will see your nature around, the environment around yourself is good. But if you are not born, like if you don't have that emotional attachment with parents or something, like sometimes children are adopted and they don't get that same thing that they get from their own parents. So for them, environment is not that good.
Okay.
Right? Or sometimes like you get good nourishment, but you've been nurtured good, but your nature it's not good, so it spoils you. So it says that the nature and nurture has they have their roles in our lives and they affect our lives.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
Do you have any question?
The first thing you were talking about with the developmental perspective
Mm-hmm.
sounded like it was a little different than the nature and nurture thing. So,
Okay.
out of the two things you talked about, what would you say is important to remember?
Okay. So, for developmental, I just told that there are developmental stages in life, that there are some goals that you need to fulfill. If you fulfill those goals, you will be good for those goals, right? But you don't need to remember them right now, because you will get that thing in like different chapter, or maybe the next chapter. But in developmental stages, just remember you need to know nature and nurture. Nature is environment, and nurture is how you be nurtured by your parents. So if you're nurtured good, you will see your environment good, and if you see your environment good, you will be able to fulfill all those developmental stages.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And cross-cultural is the last one, I think.
Yep. So cross-cultural.
Social and cultural influence.
Mm-hmm. If you want to define cross-cultural, how will you define cross-cultural perspective?
Maybe the way someone would be affected if they are raised in a culture and then, maybe this isn't the best way to describe it, but they're raised in a culture and then they move to a different culture.
Yep. It can be like, because every culture has their own, you can say, every culture is different. They have their own restrictions, and like some cultures have a lot of restrictions, some have like they allow them freely. So the thing, every culture has different things that like the children grow up with. So the mentality across the culture would be different. As it will be different, says that it's the culture influence our behavior. So if we are brought up in a different culture, our behavior will be according to the culture I was brought up in.
Gotcha.
Alright, so it says in cross culture, it says that our behavior has been influenced by the culture. So my social dealing with the people will be influenced by the culture. So my behavior and social dealing with the people will be affected by, or maybe according to the culture I'm in.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So the next, they're just giving the examples like how you meet people. It's different across the culture.
Okay.
So that's an example of it.
Gotcha.
All right. Do you have any question on all 7 perspectives?
No, those seem good. Let me move that. It's kind of in your
That's okay.
space.
So 3 ways of dealing with how you like how. So it's not that important, but still you just need to know that how psychology is applied in real life. It's like they're researchers or experimental psychologists who just research on the things and brought up like to keep on researching on the things and bring new things in the field of psychology. Then there are teachers of psychology who teach the psychology in school.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are applied psychologists who deals with all these parts, like who work in industrial and organizational, or as an industrial and organizational psychologist. An industrial and organization will be like they are dealing with new fields of psychology and bringing up medicines or researching for medicines for them. And then there's sports psychology that says like, so they have differentiated like sports from like they said that the people who are more interested in sports, they have their own psychology. So the thing in terms, so if we just saying like a businessman, he thinks his life and other people's life in terms of business.
Mm-hmm.
People may not think it's real, or people may think it's real, but it's real. Like the thing you were interested in, you're gonna think everything in your life in that way.
Yeah.
So that's what they said, that they differentiated like sports psychology, that sports psychology is different, and then they researched on it. Those are people in sports psychologists, like people who are sports psychologists specifically work with this field, and like with the people in field of psychology.
Okay.
Engineering psychologists, and this is all like they have that school psychologists, they deals with like they sit in school and then like they are aware of the things that going around with the children in school, so they deal with them, like the stress factor and all that. And then so people who get amputated or something, they have they have a stress or something, like you can say them that they have their mental disturbance because they have lost their body, but that's not an easy thing to bear. So they have that they sit and counsel them so that they can overcome, or they help them to learn those, to live with those you can say prostheses like they use, so they help them overcome that stress they have because of their amputations and stuff. And then counseling psychologists is like, I like them the most because like they listen to the problems of the people, and according to what they need counseling, they counsel them and try to like make them get the best thing that they can overcome that thing in their life that they're dealing with. Yep. And clinical psychologists is like they are in the clinics, and they work with the patients who may or may not be needing psychologist.
Okay.
It depends, like they actually diagnose that they need psychologists or not. So psychiatrists and psychologists, both things are different. So who will be psychologist and who will be psychiatrist?
So psychiatrist understands psychology, but also can diagnose, like, and give and write prescriptions, can't they? And like help them get medication.
Yeah. So psychiatrists, because they have the degree of medical degree, that's why they are licensed to prescribe medications, and they most of the time deals with the disorders that are going on. But psychologists, they usually work as the counseling people, and they get the PhD, and they can then choose any of these fields.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yep. And then there are like some therapists, that the psychotherapists is the people who try to like, it's in counseling, like when you see that there is a person who need a new thought than the thought that he has in his mind of the fear and stuff, so they work with them to create a new thought and stuff.
Okay. Kind of like cognitive behavioral
Yep.
therapy.
Yeah, that's what it is.